And if you look at the origin of the modern state under somebody like Gian Galeazzo Visconti in Milan in the about 1400, if you look then at Louis XI of France in the 1470s, 1480s, and Henry VII of England, the Earl of Richmond, the guy who got rid of Richard III, what you see there is an alliance of the king, that is the state, with the bourgeoisie, the cities, and the peasantry against what? Against feudal oligarchs who are already transforming themselves into banking oligarchs, financiers.
Well, Webster, my point is that big states are the most abusive throughout history. It breeds corruption. The corrupt come in to suck out of it. And so and then look at what the oligarchs always want. They always want a big state as their tool to control populations, destroy middle classes, wage war on the bourgeoisie using the commie terms. We'll be right back with Webster Tarpley and your phone calls right here on the one, the only Genesis Communications Radio Network. I'm Alex Jones.
From his Central Texas Command Center, deep behind enemy lines, the information war continues. It's Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
Okay, we've got Webster Tarpley with us for the rest of the hour, an in-depth interview today with him on the economy, the election, on what's happened in Russia, in future actions. Before we go any further, Webster, is there anything else you want to add concerning the geopolitical climate we're in right now before we go to calls?
Certainly. I think right now you've got to also look at the situation in Europe, because one of Brzezinski's main goals, of course, is to play Europe against Russia, too. Normally, Europe would gravitate towards Russia right now because of the oil, the natural gas. The epicenter of the current world economic breakdown crisis, the Bush economic depression, is, of course, London and New York. They've been hit hardest, and other people have been hit hard because they've gotten into bed with London and New York. There's a whole school of opinion in France, Germany, Italy, on the continent that it's time now to orient towards the Russians, East-West trade, oil for technology, mutually beneficial economic development. So Brzezinski's got to destroy that. And what he wants to use is that cordon sanitaire, or that unsanitary cordon of Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Poland, and Ukraine to begin cutting off the natural gas. The Russians, of course, are going around that by building a pipeline down the middle of the Baltic so that they can deliver guaranteed energy without the Ukrainians and the Poles skimming or cutting it off or provoking or the rest of this stuff. Remember, we have to thank, ironically enough, in this terrible situation, we have to thank Sarkozy, of all people, and Merkel for blocking the attempt by Brzezinski to bring Georgia and Ukraine into NATO as members, or at least get that going, at the last NATO meeting back in April. Remember, Obama wants Georgia in NATO. The Washington Post want them in there. We've got to say no NATO membership for this bandit, thug, kleptocrat regime. The other thing is the Italian position right now. The Italian government is Berlusconi. This just shows you what kind of a situation we're in. Berlusconi, of course, is this dirty character that everybody knows, but he's also a friend of the Russians, and the Italians have gone very, very far in this East-West trade, oil for technology kind of stuff, and they've got a history of building huge automobile plants, right? The Togliatti Fiat plant that built all those Ladas that are still running. The Italians are saying, the foreign minister Frattini is saying, we cannot transform the European Union into an anti-Russian bloc. So Georgia, get lost, stay out there. I've also been in touch with my friend Giulietto Chiesa, member of the European Parliament in Brussels. You remember he's the one who did the Zero documentary. I was in Milan last November. We had 500 people in an auditorium with Dario Fo, Nobel Prize for Literature and probably the most read playwright in the world today. There's an anthology also called Zero with essays by all sorts of people, among them yours truly. So Giulietto Chiesa is leading a publicity effort in Europe to try to show people that Georgia is this bunch of pawns of Brzezinski. So there's also a lot of work to be done vis-a-vis the Europeans, trying to get them to break away. In other words, don't become a lemming for Obama like those poor Germans at the Victory column there, the Siegessäule in the middle of Berlin. Don't go with that, but rather dump Obama. I'm very glad to say my book, Obama: The Postmodern Coup, is coming out in a German edition in the Kopp Verlag, that is Kopp, which will be hitting the newsstands fairly soon, in time for the Frankfurt Book Fair, among other things. I'm also coming out in Japan, because there's another place. The Japanese have said very clearly, there was a successful summit of Prime Minister Fukuda with President Hu of China. The Japanese defense minister said, the biggest threat to us is chaos in China. This is a way of saying, dear Zbigniew, we will not be a staging area for your attacks on China. In Taiwan, the KMT, the Kuomintang Party, has made a comeback, kicking out the U.S. puppets, the DPP Green Party or Democratic Progressive Party. Get rid of them, put in people who are reasonable, who realize that their future is a rapprochement with China and mutually beneficial trade.
Okay, Webster, I got to stop you there because I want to give some time to callers. I have to say, everything you're saying is accurate about what's happening in the world. I don't disagree with about 95% of what you're saying. The problem is there's more to all of this. It is a fact that the CIA backed the communists against the Japanese in China. It is a fact, now declassified, that the CIA, and David Rockefeller's written editorials in the New York Times saying this, wanted the communist Chinese to come to power so that they could use them in China. It is a fact that Arm & Hammer and the Rockefellers and the big foundation monies pump billions into Russia from its founding, overthrowing the czars, for British intelligence in 1917, right through into the 80s. And you're right, they attack with both sides, and they're always trying to gobble up republics. I mean, they basically attack from all angles, from within, from without, always creating a neo-mercantile system which leaves all nation states weak and vulnerable and basically starving and infighting with regional and religious conflicts. I just want to point out that we're not saying China's good or Russia's good or anybody's good here. You can disagree if you want. It's that you have this evil global corporate management system that was developed out of London, the city of London, and I just don't want to oversimplify this where America and England and Israel are the bad guys and everybody else are the good guys. All these countries are engaging in oppression and corruption. That's the nature of society. And I'm just trying to get people to see the bigger picture of how these big tectonic forces are colliding into each other.
Well, let's look at the heart of the world problem right now is this mass of derivatives, this cancerous mass of kited derivatives.
And that was a financial weapon system by the central banks while the dollar was still the world reserve currency. They made a mad dash to buy up all the real infrastructure of the world, buy up the defense contractors, media of the world, to set up their global corporate empire off of the yolk, like an egg, off of the sustenance that was the United States. Now they want to leave us holding the financial bag for that collapse while they've moved into safe havens, then bring in a third world police state here and use the United States as a military enclave to produce modern Hessian soldiers for the new global corporate state that is shucked any connection to any original nation state.
But remember now, if we use, let's use my estimate of 1 quadrillion, it's probably 1.5 quadrillion or maybe a lot more.
But well, it's 6,000 trillion that we know of.
Well, yes, but I'm saying one. Well, you want to say 2 quadrillion. Fine. 2 quadrillion is ballpark perfectly good. Where is that centered? Well, about a quarter of that is just J.P. Morgan Chase. And when you add up the rest of the U.S., you'll get up to well over half. You'll get up to probably 2/3 of the derivatives, and the rest are in London. So there you see where the center of this cancer is. To say that Russia is the same as this.
No. I'm saying they're just not as powerful. Absolutely. The Anglo-American establishment flooded the world with this liquidity to get everybody in debt and get real assets. Now they're going to leave us holding the bag.